So I wanted to show how to add GPS speed functionality into your Android app. I thought that might be something that somebody might need. It's actually really simple. So one of the first things you want to do is use ChatGPT and ask it for its opinion. It's usually going to give you a really nice and concise answer. And if you have any questions, you can just ask it. You can show the compiler error, input it into ChatGPT, see what ChatGPT gives you. So it instructs me to put this in my manifest file, and I already had this in my app. This is really easy. You just need to add it. Then pretty much on create, you call for this. You might need to set up the request code. You can ask ChatGPT how to do it. I'm going to show you a bit later. So actually, I'm going to show you that straight away. Also, one other thing you need to do, you're going to need to have the location imports, these three. The GPS request code, just private const val, and apparently it's a random number. Now, I'm not most versed in Android Studio, so why it's a random number, I can't tell. You could probably find that elsewhere. I had permission to store to access storage, so that's my code 100. I've added 105 per GPS request code. So it's a little bit more complicated to set it up to start working, but it's not impossible. So back then, where ChatGPT said we need to put this function, that's pretty much on create. So on create, I have my shared preferences. So the saved values, when you close the application, it saves few values. I retrieved the settings that were saved. I set up my ads, and then I put this function that was recommended by ChatGPT. So it's probably like a standard, something that you'd find on Android developer webpage as well. So the important, if you have the permissions which are handled elsewhere in the code, you just call for this. So the function pretty much sets the listener function, which gets called automatically every time there is new data. And there was a setup basically up there in how often does it get called. Every time this gets called, you're gonna be setting up that listener. The listener is gonna call this function, and the function is gonna retrieve the actual data, which is in meters per second. So I called my variable speed MPS. ChatGPT has actually given me this in like the variable being declared locally, but that's not good for me because I'm using it somewhere else in the code. So I have declared it up here, private variable, and in meters per second, kilometers an hour, and miles per hour. If we go down back to the part where that is actually executed, so every time there's new data coming in, these variables get updated. There was also a compiler has thrown an error because all of this section wasn't there in ChatGPT's code. So it just gave me this. Actually, these are the settings for your speed. So it does explain somewhere that this is like basically this is setting that is gonna allow you to get the data as quickly as possible every time there is new data update, because you can change the frequency of that by changing those variables. Look, minimum distance and minimum time. By the way, I love this Android Studio. It's so sort of well developed compared to some of the other IDEs. For example, a lot of people might be familiar with Arduino IDE, and Arduino IDE is not even close to this. This just gives you all of the data. If there is some issues, it's gonna suggest potential changes and stuff like that. Absolutely phenomenal. So just like that, I wasn't aware that there is an issue with the code. So if you have some issue, you're gonna get this light. It's usually, it might be red, it's usually yellow, and then it's gonna give you a few possibilities with sometimes with explanations of what to do. So I clicked on it and it added this line of code, which is basically checking if you have the permissions. So if access file location is allowed, access course location is allowed, then you can proceed further. Jumping off this, you just need to manipulate the data that is generated with this function. So every time this gets called, which is automatically, these variables get updated, and then in the rest of my code, I just update them in a manner of I have my, this is it, update UI function, which gets called in some other places in the code, which does depend in my particular application more on the other data. And every time I do update all of the texts in the code, I update these 3 text fields, which are then, you can see this in the activity main. You can see that I have them here. So you can see GPS speed, meters per second, kilometers an hour, miles per hour, as defined on the here. So this is all standard. So you need to define the name, and then you need to find it. So I'm gonna quickly show you that, because that's something that I really struggled when I was starting to figure out. It's very complicated language. So you can find, you call your local field text variable as such, and you need to call this function to find it in the XML file. So find view by ID, r.id. Why is it such syntax? I don't know, but this is the name that appears in the XML file. And then every time you, in that update UI function, every time you assign a new value to this, the data field in your UI gets updated through the XML file. Once you have everything ready, you can set up on your phone, turn on the location, turn on the debugging feature, which is shut off. On my phone, I go to system, and then there are developer options, and I need to turn on wireless debugging. Once wireless debugging is on, I can find my phone here on the devices. So you need to set it first time. On newer devices, you get the option of having it as Wi-Fi debugging. And here you go, this is the app. And you can just about see the GPS speed. Now it's 0, but if I move the phone like so, you're gonna get some value out of it. So, and it updates, even in the house. That's interesting. And eventually it goes to 0. So I can see it's much slower than the other sensors. So to me, it's the most important sensors are accelerometers in my app. And they update at a much higher rate than the GPS speed. You might go clever probably and do some interpolation. I think that's what a lot of apps that try to measure your speed, for example, acceleration in a car are doing. I mean, you got to do it. You need to interpolate the speed from the gyroscopes, or that is the accelerometer really, and then to sort of correct the accumulated integration error by correlating it with the actual GPS speed. I haven't done that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna ever do it in this app. I might do it for another app if I ever feel that there is a need for that. But for now, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thank you very much for watching the videos, and I wish you happy programming. All the best.